My wife's brother is a control freak who made our lives a living hell, so I gave my wife an ultimatum. He went absolutely insane and got arrested for assaulting me when he found out. My wife is incredibly close to her brother, and even 3 years into our marriage, she gossips to him about every one of our problems. If we have a disagreement about the dirty dishes, she calls him to complain about me. If we disagree on what movie to watch, she calls him so he can convince me to go with her suggestion. However, this isn't the worst of it. She asks her brother for permission to do things. If we have a date night planned, she calls him to ask if she can go out. Last week, he told her that it was too late to go to a restaurant with me at 9. She listened to him and canceled the reservation. He calls her at 10:30 on the dot every night to tell her that it's bedtime, and she religiously listens to him, even if going to bed interrupts what we're doing. I used to confront her about this, but instead of responding to me, she would call her brother and ask him to explain to me why their relationship is the way it is. The one time I convinced her to try putting her foot down, she called her brother, but then came back to me 20 minutes later and started berating me for trying to manipulate and control her. I feel as if specific examples are needed to really understand how insane her brother is. When my wife and I were dating, we were planning a weekend getaway. We needed something romantic just for the two of us. I was excited. I imagined a cozy cabin in the mountains where we could enjoy some much-needed alone time. But before we even finalized the details, my wife said she needed to check with her brother first. I laughed it off at the time. I figured she was just being considerate. Maybe he was protective because he's her only sibling, I thought. But then, she actually called him to ask if we could stay at the cabin. He said no. Apparently, it was way too dangerous, and his precious sister isn't used to being so far away from him. She took his word on it and told me we couldn't go. I asked her if she wanted to herself, and she shrugged. She said it didn't matter whether or not she wanted to. Her brother said no, and that was the end of it. We ended up staying at my house for the getaway as it was the only place her brother deemed safe. That was a huge red flag, and I wish I hadn't ignored it. While we were dating, there were countless times during our dates when her brother would call,